Welcome to lecture 5 on module 3. Today we are going to discuss about group decision making. We discussed about the types of decisions, components of decisions, and we also discussed about styles of decision making, cognitive biases, barriers, and how to overcome it. Now it is very important to understand how the decisions are made in the group, because now in an organizational setup we always see that decisions are made in a group. Now all organizations started to appreciate teamwork, group work, where the decisions are made collectively rather than being made by the individual. So when we are making group decision making, it is important to understand what are the ways in which we can make a decision in a group. So how do we collectively make a decisions, and when we are trying to understand the group decision making, we should also try to learn some of the fundamental aspects about the group. What is group, what are the stages of group development, what are the certain characteristics of the group, so that this will actually provide a foundation to work on our group decision making. Today we will discuss about these fundamentals about a group and what are the types of group decision making. Okay, now try to understand what is a group. A group symbolizes a cluster of two or more persons with some common characteristics, or otherwise if we put it, a group is where two or more people collectively work for a common goal. They will all share a common purpose. That is called a group. Even in a very simple sense, the organization itself can be called as a group, because as an organization, the existence of the organization is for a common purpose. So then we can even call organization as a group, but it is a larger group because the organization have so many people and so many functional areas also interdependently work, interconnected to form a larger group. Then organization can also be called as a group because they share a common purpose and they have a common goal. Okay, for the reasons of our survival, human beings always tend to be collective with mutual interactions, language, behavioral norms which have been developed and ultimately transcended to the formation of social groups. Okay, in an organization, a group work process is followed to understand how an organization members work together and get things done by a group. So when you're talking about groups in an organization, we always see there are so many types of groups which include formal group. Formal group is nothing but is a defined group where an organization forms, let's say, task force or project group, where the organization defines a formal group. That's a formal, defines a particular group, then there's a formal group. There is a command group where maybe people who are only drive the organization, who make the decisions, or the mid-level managers who form the task force in implementing certain changes in the organization. They become a command group. Power group, or maybe sometimes the top leaders who are the board of members become a power group. They all influence the kind of decision they are going to make in terms of financial decision, in terms of strategic decision, in terms of their future course of action for a company. So they become a power group. There are committees, right? In every organization you always see there are multiple committees work, finance committee, accounts committee. That sometimes you also talk about works committee. In an organization I see representative of both the management and the workers work together in a works committee, or sometime grievance handling committee. There are multiple committees work. They are also group, right? They also work for some common purpose. Then informal groups. So informal groups in an organization where as an individuals they form their own groups. They are all informal groups. It's not defined by the organization structure. There is no specific formation of the group by the organization itself, but as individually they're sharing the common characteristics or a common way they do things. They become an informal group. For example, employees who are working in an organization, you always see certain with a few number of employees go together for the break times, or during the lunch they always sit with the same group and work. They become an informal group. The existence of the informal groups maybe sometimes to share their personal reasons, or the other things, or to have a chat, or the grey point communication in the organization. They will have an informal groups. That's not defined by the company. So they form on their own. They are all called informal groups. Okay, now when we are trying to understand about the groups, as we said, groups are two or more people with a common purpose or share a common goal. Then in every group there is a stages of group development. Okay, it's very interesting and important to learn what are the stages of group development. There are 5 stages. Okay, it starts with the forming stage. Forming stage is nothing but a very initial stage of a group, wherein organizations defines a particular group or forms the particular group, and then they also set the rules and regulations of the rule membership of the group members. Let's who can become a member of this particular group, and the purpose of this group, why this group has been formed, and then the rules and regulations are being set, and the existence, why the group has been formed, what are the tasks being going to be given. Is a very forming stage where every individual will come into it. They will be inducted into the particular group. Then the moment they are inducted into the particular group, they will be start introducing themselves to each other. That's a forming stage. Then it's a storming stage. Then there is a storming. You'll be surprised why the term storming is used. See, now I'm going to give you an analogy. Let's take some of your relationships, right? Even you take your close friend. Before you become a point of close friends, okay, so to reach the term the close friends, you would have gone through these similar stages. Forming is nothing. I'm just relating this with your this example of talking about a close friend, right? So how the close friend to the stage of reaching a close friend, you would have gone through this stage. Forming is you both would have met as a individuals. By the time what you know about each other is like only by name, maybe the place where you come from, or which discipline you belong to, or which department you belong to. Then you would have started to talk. Then after talking to each other, there comes a storming phase. So the storming phase is once you try to learn about each other, then you try to differ on certain aspects. You have a lot of argument, you counter argue with these particular persons suggestions or opinions. There will be difference of opinions, or you differ because you never know what are the likes and dislikes of these members in a group, right? You will all compete with each other, you try to have counter argument. Then that's a storming phase. That's kind of a lot of I don't say fight, it is kind of a conflicts or difference of opinions, and likes and dislikes are not known to each other, so there is an argument and counter argument goes through. That's a storming phase, right? Then you move on to the norming phase. Once you both go through the storming, you have argued and counter argued, you would learn what you like, what you do not like, what they likes in these group members, what they dislike as a group member. Then they try to create a norm, which are unwritten rules, right? So as a group members, you will try to create a consensus. You will arrive at a consensus as a group, and you will decide on what are the terms you can see. For example, in a group, you will decide what you can discuss, what you don't discuss, what you would like as a group, what you do not like as a group. So that's kind of a norming phase. So once you go through the storming only, there is a possibility of arriving at a norming stage where you are coming to a conclusion, consensus about how a group members can function. Okay, let's say talk about there can be a defined structure of how to make a decision in the group, but maybe sometimes you will say when decision has to be made, then group will have a norm. Who will discuss, how we will discuss about the possibility of making any decision. So that's where the norming happens. So once you form the group, that's a very early stage in a group development where you know only by name or just by the positions or the department. Then storming, where you are trying to learn more about the members in a group. Then that is the time you will have a lot of differences of opinions. The moment the differences of opinions are sorted out, you are coming to a norming stage. So the norming stage, you are creating a consensus. Okay, so I know this person do not like this particular member of my group do not like this, so I should not talk about it because this member will feel bad, so I don't talk about it. So this kind of a norming we create. The moment the norming happens, so it's kind of a consensus, we are gelling, you become a one unit, right? So from an individual, like different pieces, you come together, you repelled each other, that's a storming phase. Then as the repulsion all over, you all collectively understood each other, then you are forming as a one unit. The moment one unit forms, then comes the stage of performing. So then you will be able to perform, and you continue to produce, and then effectively respond to company's needs, organization needs, you work on it, then then you will try to achieve your goals. Okay, for to achieving this performing stage, to reach this performing stage, it is very, very important that the group has to go through these three phases: forming, storming, norming. Imagine that you just put a team members and then ask them to perform. The moment they start to perform, what will happen? You will see that eventually this group will fail, because the very first day, if you ask them to not giving them time to go gel as an individual group, members in the group, then form, understand, and then create one unit feeling, then if you are going for performing stage, it is better. that you as because you know the strength and weaknesses of each individual members in a group, then you collectively start to work and then you will complement each other and then you work better. But if for example you form a group, then very first day you start to perform, but you never know the strength and weakness of each members, what will happen eventually in the next week you will see, or in the subsequent weeks you will see that this group start to decline in their performance because they have not gone through the phases of storming and norming. So that is an important phase where they know the strength and weakness of each other, then they start to complement each other's strength and weaknesses. Because let's say for example one person is really good at analytical skills, and let's say one person is really good at coding and doing a lot of analytical stuff, the other person is really good at conceptual level, he or she will be able to know what it is, learn about it, then it is a collectively basing the conceptual knowledge, passing on this conceptual knowledge to a person who can work on the coding or the analysis, then that is actually collectively able to work. So that is very important in any group. You need to go through these phases, then you come for a performing. Now the last stage is adjourning. Adjourning happens in two ways. One is, let's say your group is formed for a certain task to be done. So you all gone through forming, storming, norming, then you are performing. Performing is nothing but you are actually performing the particular task. One, the task is a time bound, you have done, then group has to adjourn. So group will be dismantled, then all the group members will go back to their respective places. So the adjourning happens. Another way is that worst case, where you fail to do anything and group is not actually working at all, there is a lot of conflict, it's the purpose of formation of the group has actually failed, then you adjourn. You realize that it is not going to work, then you adjourn. So but there are two ways to adjourning, but always if you see the better one is you perform and then you finished your goals and the task, then you adjourn. So these are the stages of group development. So forming, storming, norming, performing and adjourning. Okay, so as I said, it is very important that every group has to go through these three phases to perform better. If a company do not give time for the group members to gel along to form as a single unit, then they cannot perform well, they cannot sustain their performance for a longer period. It is very important so that they learn about their strengths and weaknesses and then they perform as a one unit, as a group. Okay, these are the stages of group development. Now we'll try to understand some more about the group decision making. Okay, so when we are talking about a group decision making, how it is different from the individual decision making? See, when we are talking about a group decision making is always a participatory process of taking advantages of a group as a resource to minimize potential disadvantage as multiple problems or situations are analyzed, evaluated and considered alternate course of actions. So when you're talking about a group decision making, the first thing comes here is that it is a participatory process where you are allowing every member in the group to participate in the decision making process. Then as a group decision making, you are able to take an advantage because you have so many members, everybody can contribute in deciding, correct? So and when you have multiple problems, every individual member in a group has their own experience and knowledge and judgmental skills, conceptual skills, they are able to contribute towards analysis and identifying the best possible solutions for address the problem. That's why group decision making has been very superior compared to the individual decision making, because the advantage of group decision making is you are able to take the expertise of the multiple group members so that you are able to collectively make a decisions. Sometimes the biases can also be better managed in the group decision making compared to the individual decision making. Fine. Okay, some of the characteristics which makes the group, though we talked about group is nothing but two or more people have a common purpose or a common goal, now we also see some of the characteristics which actually makes a group. Okay, interpersonal interaction. Individuals do not just form a group. For example, let's say you and me are never known to each other, but we are all sitting in the same bench or in a similar circle. It is not going to mean that we are a group. There needs to be an interaction between, unless otherwise there is no interaction between the members in the group, then they are not actually a group. Okay, then perception of membership. Individuals should perceptibly aware that they are members of the group. So every individual should feel that all of them are part of the group, they are all members of the group. Then that perception of membership should come, because I belong to this group. You feel that you are part of this group, you are a member of the group. Unless otherwise you don't perceive that you are part of the member, then you are not a group. Then interdependency and mutual influence. This is very important. In every group, each member influences each other, and everybody is always influenced by each other member. There is always an interdependency and then mutual influence upon each other. Okay, then mutual goals. Individuals come together in pursuit of a mutual goal. So every member will have a collective goal, correct, which is set by using a goal congruence model. You will collectively set what is the goal of a group. So when an individual feels that their goals match the goals of the other individuals, they pursue the goal achievement voluntarily. Let's say my goal and my group members goals are same, then I will be voluntarily put in a lot of effort. So that's why the mutual goal is also one of the characters of the group. Then motivation. Group members seek to satisfy some personal need through their joint association. Why the existence of the group? See, group members also try to see that can I meet some of my needs being part of the group. For example, let's say I am not really good at coding, but I am good at understanding things. But being in the part of a group, if the group has also got one person really good at the coding or the analytical skills, so analysis skills, handling the tools or techniques, then now being a part of a group member, I also have certain motivation that I will get satisfied that I have a person who is expertise in the coding, so he or she will be able to support me. So I have the motivation that some of my needs can be satisfied by the expertise available in the group, right? The other member can offer me that expertise, so my needs also get satisfied. Then there's a structured relationships. So interactions are structured by set of rules, definitions and norms. As we said, group will have a certain norms. How do you interact, how do you discuss things, there is a structured relationships. So these are all the certain characteristics which actually drive the concept of a group. Now we are going to see the process of decision making. As we said, group decision making is very superior because it is a participatory process. We are taking an advantages of multiple individuals contributing towards common goal, addressing this particular problem or addressing the opportunity. Now the process of decision making we are going to see. The process of decision making is also very similar to the process of planning we have seen, right? So there are several steps are following in the process of decision making. We will see one by one. First one, this is a first phase in which diagnosing, defining and identifying the source of problem, which is very similar to the decision making model, right? The process of decision making. So the members of the group will identify and diagnose different types and sources of problems with the mutual interactions. Every individual in the group, they will participate, they try to diagnose the problem. What is the problem itself? Then they formulate the problem and then they try to understand the sources of the problem. Sources of problem, nothing but the causes of the problem. What causes this problem actually? So every member will participate, they interact and collectively they will identify, okay, these are the problems and these are the sources of the problem. These are the things which is causing this particular problem. This is the first stage in the group decision making, because you need to become cognizant about the problem. The existence of the problem should be known to the group to act on the problem. Okay, then once the cognizance of the problem is known, means the existence of the problem is realized by the group members, then comes the second phase of information gathering and analysis of the facts required to solve the problem. Now as a group you identified the problem and the causes. Now the second step is you will go collect the all possible informations to address the problem. You will collect all the data and consolidate the data, and you will try to analyze the facts or the information provided to you, so that you are able to effectively address the problem. So members sit together and consolidate the different sources of information. They decide, okay, what are the possible sources we can get the information. They gather the information. Once they gather the information, they will analyze the information for the future course of action. Okay, so how we can address this problem? So we have got a lot of information and data is given to us. Now let us analyze the data, try to understand the data better, so that we are generating a lot of alternate possible course of action to solve the problem. That is the second stage in the group decision making process. Now let's say you have made the alternatives, you have collected data and you are able to understand the problem much better with a lot of information provided to you. Now what is the next? So after collecting all the possible informations about the problem, to address the problem. Now I will develop the alternate course of actions. Okay, let's say as all group members participate together and then they choose, okay, so this is the problem, okay, problem X. Now I need to address problem X. How do I address? I can address one direction, two direction, three direction, or let's say multiple directions. Now I identified all directions can address this problem. Now I need to evaluate which direction is better to handle the problem X, right? The group process, where a member arrange the evaluation by themselves to compare one alternative course of actions with the other. So it's kind of compare with each alternatives, and then they say, okay, which one is better, which one is superior, and based on the process then they go to the next one, choosing the best decision from the alternative outputs. As I said, they will compare each other the alternative choices provided, then they see which one is superior amongst each other, then they collectively rank which solution is better to address the problem X out of these possible choices we have framed. So this is the process of choosing the decision in the group process. Then once the decision is made, it is very important that you need to communicate these decisions. There are two ways of disseminating decision in the groups. Okay, see, when we are making a decision, it is very important that you actually disseminate the information back to the members in the group. It cannot be just left like that, because we made the decision, it is done, we can implement. No, that decision has to be communicated, that information has to be disseminated to the members of the group. How do you do? Managers themselves disseminate through an organizational structure. Let's say in organization we see an organizational structure, right? There is an hierarchy. So from that, there is a flow of information goes from one level to other level, and that way it will ripple down to the employees at the lower level, right? The manager themselves can disseminate through an organizational structure. There is a defined structure, there is a hierarchy, and then the flow of information can happen. Then members who have participated in the group decision making also can communicate the decision by the group as well as by the manager. So members also can pass the information to the other levels in the organizations. Okay, that is, there are two ways of communicating the decisions. So as I said, but communicating the decision is a priority. Then now after I communicated the decisions what is made in the group, then you need to implement the decision. In a group decision making process, manager have a role to make group participate in the process of implementing the group decision in order to attain the organization goals. So in every group, leader has to act, right? So the leader has to facilitate, especially in a group, rather than you directing the group, you need to facilitate, act as a catalyst in the group, so that the action is being initiated. So in a group decision making, once the decision is made and then communicated, then you need to implement. Manager has to initiate the implementation. They have to engage all the members in a group to implement the decisions. So it is found that group decision making, that various forecasting tools are identified and used by the manager, which are the results of mutual interest and interaction of the group. So there are as we talked about, a lot of forecasting tools being used. There are now with analytical tools and techniques have come, but even in the group decision now, it's more of a qualitative in nature. In the group decision making, though we use a lot of quantitative numbers, but it is also qualitative decision making also important, or how we are going to engage the expertise from the group members in making a better decisions. That's where the advantage of the group decision making comes. Group decision making is always qualitative in nature. Qualitative in the sense, why we say qualitative, it is not the data driven just approach, it is about the collective decision by participating from the group members, right? That is have a lot of superiority compared to the individual decision making. There is their experience, expertise, and knowledge, conceptual understanding all contributed towards making a better decision, and which is actually taking away their biases, individual biases, right? When there is a group decision, it is likely that that decision is at least free from the individual biases, because members question the decisions. Now, strategies for improving group decision making. Now we are talking about a group decision making. How do we make a better decisions? What are the techniques we can do, and what are the techniques we can use to make a group decision making? Because we talked about multiple ways in the individual decision making, but we should also see what are the possible ways in which we can make a group decision making. First, and which most widely used, is a brainstorming approach. this is nothing but an idea generation exercise, right? So where when we are exploring a new problem or an organization is encountering a problem, so we need to generate ideas, right? So how do you generate ideas? It's a brainstorming is a best exercise. It's one of the best group decision making exercise, where you bring in people or the members of the group to the table and present them the scenario what an organization is going through. Now you generate ideas, you ask them to populate their ideas to address the particular problem. People, members will be very enthusiastic in participating in giving their opinions and ideas. This brainstorming always provide you lot of options to come up with the creative solutions. But there are disadvantages with respect to the brainstorming. One is that sometimes high power people, high profile people try to influence the discussions, or sometimes we can also say anchoring bias, when first idea will always get the major attention, right? Somebody speaks and one with a lot of power, authority in the group, then if they put their points, other become submissive. They do not contribute, they do not essentially or necessarily contribute, or otherwise what will happen, there is another anchoring bias, where people will stick to one particular idea because somebody said, and everybody will be running around the bush and say the similar idea. That is some of the disadvantages of the brainstorming. But the advantages being it is a one best possible method to generate a lot of ideas. Every people will contribute to the addressing the problem. Then to overcome this disadvantages, we talked about the brainstorming, right, where one person try to dominate discussions, or there is an anchoring bias is possible. Then there is a nominal group technique, which is one of the most appreciated group decision making technique. I'll explain in a very simple way. Nominal group technique is why the nominal group technique is itself, it's a process where it's again a group decision making process. How do you make the decision is that every individual are asked to give their opinion, write down their opinion. Okay, then once everybody completes the process, there will be a facilitator. He'll say this is the problem for a company, that will be presented to the group. Then every member in the group are asked to write their points. Okay, what are the ways we are going to handle. Then every individual are given a chance to give their one point. Nobody will counter argue or counter your opinions. Once everybody lists down their first choices, then all of them are asked to rank the decisions shared by the members. So in this point, what is happening, you are actually giving opportunity to every member to contribute towards it, and then you will, out of these choices given, then everybody will rank it from order of the priority 1, 2, 3. So means you are actually giving everybody a chance to talk, and then trying to make a best decision out of it. But the only disadvantage in this particular nominal group technique is that it is a bit time consuming process, where because every individual has to present their ideas, then everyone has to go back around and then give their priority ranking. So that's a bit time consuming, but it is a very effective one, because it doesn't influence, or everybody is given a chance. Nobody is going to take away by the anchoring bias, or the dominance is not going to play a role in decision making. Then another is a Delphi technique. So Delphi technique is also one of the best group decision making technique, in which where people are remotely located. How do you make a decision? Group decision making is driven by the questioners. So the facilitator will send you a list of questions related to a problem, and then they will ask you to provide information on give your opinion on the particular questions. And this one round of questionnaire is done. The the facilitator will call out the information. He'll give a brief summary about responses discussed, and then he or she will generate another set of questions. For example, let's say one round of discussion will generate another possible questions, right? So then those possible questions will be again circulated among the group members to give their responses. This way they will go 1 or 2 rounds to understand the responses from them. Then collectively they take a decisions. That's a Delphi technique method. So in which is most of the questionnaire method, where questions are distributed to all members, giving their suggestions. Then the second round of questionnaires will be floated among the group members. Again, that information will be taken. Then collectively decision will be arrived. So this is another decision making process. Then constructive conflicts. See, constructive conflict is very similar to devil's advocate, where constructive conflict has potential of bringing a problem into focus and stimulating a constructive and creative thinking. You say this is a kind of a devil's advocate role. You present a solution or the problem, and then everybody will counter argue, and then you discuss and fight around and argue around your discussions of the possible ideas. Then you choose the best alternate solutions. This is one of the good group sessions in order to choose a best alternative choices, where everybody will counter argue or argue on it and then question the solutions proposed. Let's say 5 members, each member propose some solutions, every member presents the solutions, everybody will question the particular solutions, and then they collectively make a decision. Constructive conflict, these are the effective strategies in the group decision making. Now let us try to compare the decision making between individuals and the group decision making. See, the individual decision making, as we said, there are some limitations depending upon so say in terms of biases. As I said, group decision making has advantages over better handling the biases. Okay, so we will compare in terms of certain parameters, framing effects. See, in the individual decisions are limited in framing effects. For example, if the problem itself is framed in a very smaller way, or it is not in a clearly defined way, so individual decisions are also driven by the way the problem is being framed, right, or the problem is presented. So some individuals have always tendency to simplify the complex decisions. But whereas in a group decision making, where you have multiple group members, so there is a possibility to get away from this framing effect. Then reliance on heuristics. We always individuals used to go for a simple rule of thumb. For example, 80-20 heuristic principle. Most of the 20% of the customers buys the 80% of the time. So it's kind of a simple rule of thumb. They try to follow the simple procedures to arrive at the decisions. Whereas that is always driven by the individuals. Whereas the group decision, they do not go for the simple usage. Rather, they go for a complete way of discussing things and making decisions. Then there are inherent biases. As we said, individuals come up with a lot of biases. Can be hindsight biases, favorites, or person sensitivity bias. There are multiple biases are potentially to influence the individual decision making. Whereas group decision making, though there are group think where sometimes one member in a group decides and everybody also accept the decisions. There is also possibility of group think to happen or group polarization to happen. Since you are in a group, you make an extreme decisions. So though there are individual biases also likely, that in the group decision making you are away from the individual decisions. So the individual biases are not actually influencing the group decisions. But there are other things. One is called groupthink and group polarization. Second is group polarization. Groupthink is when one individual thinks as a group everybody will agree to the decision. Or another thing is group polarizations. Since being in a group, you take an extreme decision. You go take extra over risks, or let's say being very conservative. There can be group polarization within the when the group members are present. The likely impact of this group decision making is groupthink. Everybody will accept the group decision, and another is the group polarization. Then organizational constraints. It makes managers imperfect as they shape their decisions to reflect organization performance evaluation and reward system to comply with organizational regulations. So organizational constraints will also impact the way decisions are made with respect to individual and groups. Sometimes individual decisions, it can be more constraint can be provided, but in case of a group decision, maybe organization may provide more resources or more support to the group decisions. So the organization constraints may be limited with respect to group decision, may be higher for the individual decision making. So on this parameter we could compare the individual decision making and group decision making. Okay, so with this we are completing a module on decision making. We discussed about types, forms and styles of decision making, barriers, and the cognitive bias in decision making. We also discussed about individual decision making versus group decision making, and what are the techniques in group decision making, which we talked about brainstorming as a one of the important tool in group decision making. We also talked about nominal decision making, Delphi technique, and then we also talked about conflict and constructive conflicting, and we also contrasted to understand the individual decision making versus group decision making. So we have learnt about decision making in module 3. Thank you.